fight war. They are not supposed to be dealing with internal security matters. Unfortunately, the problems are so big. The police has not been reformed thoroughly to be able to perform its functions, and you find the military performing functions that should normally be done by the police. This is really a problem, and it's also one of the reasons why the whole issue is becoming more and more complicated. We have to retrace our steps. Where and how did we find ourselves here? We are not like this before. We are not like this 30 years ago. And we can be able to change the situation. The only way to change the situation is for the Nigerian authorities to have a rethink, to prioritize the people, first of all, by making sure that the people are the priority of governance, not anything else. Let us make sure that we fight poverty. Poverty is one of the reasons why we are having what we are having, whereby young people, uneducated, untrained, unskilled, will carry guns and go into a village and pick school children and in order to make money out of it. We have to fight poverty. It's very important. If we don't fight it, it will destroy us. Number two, we have to make sure that there is equality in this country. The gap between the people who have and the people that have not, between the poor and the very, very extremely rich, is becoming bigger and bigger and escalating to a shameful level. We have to make sure that, this country, people live with reasonable dignity and they can feed themselves. They can as well live without being in destitution. Number three, we have to also make sure that in this country, people are held to account. There should be consequences for everything. We have a situation whereby if you are holding a position or you are holding a responsibility, there will be failure in your area of duty and nothing will happen. And that is why we are so insecure. We are having so much insecurity to the extent that even in Abuja, there were hours where you can't go to so many places because you are afraid that you might be kidnapped, you might be abducted. And this should not be the situation, and it is the duty of our leaders and the people as well to wake up and ask ourselves, are we supposed to be living like this? Is this the kind of world we want to leave behind for those coming up? Is this the kind of country that we want to hand over to the next generation?
Now that you mentioned the FCT, I think we'll just dwell on that. You mentioned the FCT and we talked a bit on the military, so I'll just throw two questions from these areas. First, with the FCT, there are those who feel that for us to have the recent cases of kidnap and banditry activities that we've had in the FCT and around states around the FCT points to one direction only, that, every other person should be concerned because the FCT is supposed to be seen as the safest place in the country. But then recent activities have proved otherwise. So how much concern should people have, especially those in the FCT and Nigerians in general? And then you also look at recent activities in Delta State, Kwama, where the military is currently occupying that town, and a chase for those behind the killing of 17 soldiers have now even extended into Bayelsa State, and people who live in the Kwama community can no longer just stay in their community. Some of them have to evacuate, living in bushes, and there have been reports of human rights abuses, etc., etc. Both these situations separately, how would you respond, and what possible solutions do you think should be taken to address them?
Well, let us, first of all, let me start with the situation in Delta State. The Niger Delta should be the safest place in Nigeria because it is this part of Nigeria where the wealth that is used to run this country is coming from. That should be the safest, most developed place in the country. It's unfortunate that we are in this situation. Niger Delta has been going through a lot in the last 20 years and is quite unacceptable, and it should not continue like that. What is happening in the Okoma community is something that Amnesty International has been monitoring, and we are also documenting everything that is going on there. We are totally and completely against lawlessness, against killing of anybody, against killing of any human being, no matter who he is. We are completely against it. And we are always of the position that anybody who kills any human being must be brought to justice, no matter who he is, no matter his reason, no matter the ideology that drove him to go and kill somebody else. And we are also of the same position that human rights violation in whatever circumstance, in whatever situation, no matter the context, it should not happen, is unacceptable. So the situation in that community in Delta State, we are closely monitoring it. We are documenting it, and very soon we are going to come up with our findings. I don't want to say anything yet about what we are finding out because we have our processes, and we always go through a lot of quality assurance processes to make sure that whatever information we are putting out is something that we have not only one, but 2 or 3 or 4 evidence to support. So definitely very soon we are going to come up with our findings on what is going on in that community. But we are closely monitoring it, and we are deeply concerned about what is going on there. Now, on the FCT, it is not only recently. FCT is surrounded by a lot of states that are very big, especially Niger State, which is one of the largest in terms of landmass in Nigeria. Niger State has been having a lot of security challenges. And in the last 10 years, with the increasing insecurity in so many states, the banditry in the northwest and the Boko Haram conflict in the northeast, a lot of people have been flocking into the federal capital territory. And even other parts of Nigeria where there is insecurity, people flock into the FCT in order to find safety. Now, the most of the abductions in the FCT, if you follow closely, you'll find out that they mostly happen around the areas of Buari, which is a suburb, which has a large extent of forest and bush and rocky area that is a very difficult terrain. And it also happens in places like Kuje Area Council and Kwali and other, are far outskirts. And it also happens within Abuja itself. A lot of efforts have been put in place recently to improve the situation, but we are hoping that the authorities should never allow what happened recently in the FCT to happen again. FCT should be the place of safety, and in fact, not only FCT, every part of Nigeria, even the people will continue to live in poverty and suffering and lack of infrastructure, lack of water, lack of stable electricity. At least people should be safe enough to move around without the fear of being kidnapped, without the fear of being abducted by a ruthless gunmen and held ransom for money. We make sure that the Nigerian government has a responsibility, constitutional responsibility, international human rights obligation to protect the people. It is not something debatable. No one has the responsibility of protecting Nigerians apart from the Nigerian government. It has the power, it has the resources, and that is why in this country, people are not allowed to carry out, because the government has guaranteed them that, okay, we are going to protect you. And I think it is the responsibility of government to fulfill that obligation so that people will live their lives without the fear of being abducted or kidnapped or killed.
All right, Mr. Sanusi, I would have to pause you here. We'll take a very short commercial. When we come back, you'd update us with the situation in the FCT still, whether or not there's been improvements, and then we get onto a very fundamental question, which is state policing. Many have said that could solve the problem. We'll find your opinion about that as soon as we return after this short commercial. Please just stay on the line for us.
Thank you.
Amnesty International director, country director, Amnesty International Nigeria, Mr. Isa Sanusi, who is talking to us via telephone this morning. Mr. Sanusi, thank you very much for staying on the line for us. Let's just quickly get back with the conversation. So, you were talking to us about the situation in the FCT and the areas where we have the issues that we've had. And so far, you're saying the security personnel should ensure that what had happened doesn't happen again, which brings me to my question. That is, what improvements are we seeing? Have we seen arrests been made? Is there something Amnesty International can tell us that it has seen that gives it the assurance that, okay, well, it seems as though that security agencies are on top of the situation?
Well, I've been living in the FCT for the last at least 2 decades, and there was no time when Abuja is as unsafe as it is now. The insecurity is quite staggering and very shocking. The pressure from other states is moving in, affecting the whole FCT. The authorities of the FCT and the federal government have said that they have taken measures to improve the situation. Some arrests were mentioned, some security strategies were also mentioned. But it will take time for us to give a verdict about whether these measures are effective or are improving things or not. In the past, you can drive around Abuja in the night, in the midnight, without a fear. But sometimes these days you hear stories of, car snatchers under bridges in the night. You hear stories about, kidnappings even in estates. Even though it has not happened recently in recent days, but we had had them in the previous months and weeks in this country. That is unacceptable, and I believe that we have to look at things from a bigger picture. Why are we where we are? I believe that these things are happening. They are a result of something. We have to thoroughly try to analyze things from a very broader perspective so that we can have a very clear idea of why we are where we are. The Federal Capital Territory, has been having very dark streets for many years. There is improvement recently, of course, in terms of infrastructure, but the streets are still dark. And many places are so dark to the extent that in the night you will be scared to be moving along those streets. The authorities have to do more to improve the situation, the security situation, by making sure that all the streets are light off, and they have to bring back the issue of closed-circuit security cameras, that is CCTV, which is one of the issues that is still in the debate about security and the FCT. There is, of course, as I've mentioned, improvement in terms of infrastructure, where a lot of roads are now being completed more faster than before, and a lot of roads are also being reconstructed or constructed. A lot of important connections within the city are also being completed. This is very good, but the authorities have to squarely address the issue of insecurity, and that is a very important issue that must be addressed and must be addressed now. It is not about making pronouncements. When security is good, people know it. You don't have to tell them that security has improved. So the government has to work harder. It has to put in the resources, and it also has to address the underlying issues. Why are people flocking into the FCT? Because many states are facing insecurity, huge insecurity, to the extent that people are moving, and the pressure is too much on FCT to the extent that we are having the kind of insecurity we are having now. We have to make sure that in this country, governments at all levels, and when I say governments, I'm talking about the state, people have to start questioning their state governors. What are they doing with the money they are collecting from Abuja every month? What are they really doing? Where is the money going to? So the federal government has its own duties, the state government has its own responsibilities and its own resources. And we have to be questioning all tiers of government. What are they doing with those funds they are getting? Where is the money going to? We have to start asking these questions if we want to live in prosperity and if we want to live with dignity, because we have the duty. When you need sanitation, you have to demand for it. No one will give you just like that, sitting down and not talking about it. When you need security, you have to talk about it. When you need roads, you have to ask for it. You have to demand for it. That is how development happens everywhere. You don't just sit down and sit quiet and think that people know your problem, therefore they will solve it.
All right, Mr. Sanusi.
You have to make a demand for it.
All right.
And that is very important.
You are
doing that.
All right, Mr. Sanusi, just stay on the line for us. Let's take a short commercial now. We'll be back.
Himself. James, hello.
Susan, I beg. Say you the wine me.
For where? You who no longer
o'clock. My name is Ifiemi Andrew. We get back to our conversation this morning on the Morning Crossfire. My guest is the country director, Amnesty International Nigeria, Sanusi. Mr. Sanusi, again, thank you for staying there for us. As we attempt to wrap things up with our conversation, there's one more question I'd like to ask you before we take some response from the listener. And that is the calls that we've been having with regards to state policing. We saw some governors submit the proposal for state policing at the FEC meeting. It was looked at, and it's something that's been debated on now. In your opinion, is state policing the answer to Nigeria's insecurity problems?
Well, first of all, let me make it very clear that Amnesty International does not have a position on how a government or an institution decides to conduct itself, whether they want state police, local police. Amnesty International does not have a position on how people should govern themselves or run their affairs. We always look out for the right of the people, the protection of the rights of the people of this country. But in my own opinion, as a Nigerian, I believe that, the demand for state police is quite a sign of the fact that it's a sign of the fact that we are completely losing our direction. We are completely lost in terms of where we are and where we should be. The problem is not in the police itself, but in the way it is run. And if at all we have a state police, and at the end of the day, the same state police is run the way the current police is run, I think we will go back to the same situation. And many people who are opposed to state police say that some governors are dictators, arrogant, and lawless. Therefore, if you give them the power to control a police, their opponents will not sleep in that state even for a day. And this is a very genuine concern many people have. Will a governor allow the opposing people who are opposed to him, to hold a rally in that state with police protection? Will a governor be able to allow that police to work thoroughly? Some states cannot even pay salaries on time. Will it happen to the state police when it is created? In some states, you go to the whole state, you realize that not a single institution is working functionally and effectively. Would that be the fate of the state police when it is created, to say that in some states, 3 months salaries not paid, and the civil service or the system is bloated with incompetent people, favoritism and many other things, cronyism, political considerations about competence when appointing people? Would that happen to be the fate when we have the state police? Now, the police system we have in Nigeria is completely rotten. The police are not getting the kind of remuneration that is encouraging and that is human in reality. They are not paid well. They are not well trained. Look at their accommodations all over Nigeria. Go to the barracks. The doctors are shameful, unacceptable. No human being should be living in that kind of condition. And they don't get regular training, for example. That is why, in some cases, according to our investigations, police in Nigeria always resort to torture or beating because they don't even know how to ask questions that would elicit the necessary information they need to carry out an investigation and find out what is wrong and what is right. Now, the police need to be reformed thoroughly so that they can be able to perform their functions effectively, so that they can be able to carry out investigations, protect the people, and police the country in a way that we will all feel safe. Therefore, the issue is not about the state police. The issue is about the capacity of the Nigerian people or the Nigerian government to establish very strong institutions that will work for the people, not for some interest. Therefore, when you have state police, what difference will it make? Who will run those states? Is it the same governors who are running the states now, where so many states, You go there, people are being kidnapped anyhow, and there are no roads. When it is rainy season, many places you can't even go because there are no roads. No, the schools are in bad state. Look at the schools in the north where children are kidnapped. Whenever children are kidnapped from a school, the school structure is ramshackle. The roofing is leaking. So, if these are the kind of state governors that will run the state police, I think we may end up regretting if it happens.
All right, Mr. Sanusi.
As I told you at the beginning, we don't have a position in these matters, but I'm telling you my opinion as a Nigerian. But I believe that the problem is not about creating state police. The problem is about creating institutions that are strong enough to work for the people, not for some interest.
All right, let's take a few calls and hear what the listener has to say about this. A lot of people have different opinions about it, and I'm pretty sure there might be some that might have questions to ask and for you to respond to in your capacity as Director, Amnesty International Nigeria. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. You can also call 0817-923-0007. And if you're on Facebook, at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. The question is simple. State police, is it the answer to the insecurity problems the country is currently facing? My guest, speaking in a personal capacity, has told us his own views about it from a personal perspective. Well, what's your opinion about it, and what do you think? Would it solve the problem? So let us know what you think about it on X, Nigeria Info PH, on YouTube, Nigeria Info PH. And if you also have questions that you want to direct to the Director, Amnesty International Nigeria, please, you can do that as well, but keep it very short. We'll go to Rumukushi now, where Victor is on the line. Let's hear what Victor has to say. Victor, good morning.
Okay, Ifiemi, good morning.
Good morning, Victor. Go on.
Good morning to your guests at the studio there. Ifiemi, now, the question is, the present police here now, how is the training? How do they manage them? We have police, we have a force, we have a navy, we have a MOPO, we have a civil defense. Name them. None of them has been able to be well trained by the federal government. And now you want to give state. No, Ifiemi, please, I want to beg Nigeria. We should rise up against this thing. It's not. We don't even need it. We shouldn't even deliberate on it. We don't need to take police. Please.
All right, Victor. Thank you. David from Yenegua. Good morning.
Good morning, my friend Ifiemi Andrew.
All right, David, good morning. Go on.
As a matter of fact, it is not as if state police is a bad idea. But for me as an individual, my fear and worry is the governors that are advocating or agitating for state police, are they not also going to abuse or misuse the state police, just as they are alleging that the police as it is today, the federal police is being overused or abused by the federal government or the government in power? Also again, it is not enough